The neon signs of Nova Haven's underground market painted purple shadows across Liam Blackwood's face as he pulled his hood lower. 10 years of mapping stars hadn't prepared him for navigating these shadowy corridors, where everything sacred was sold to the highest bidder. But the message that had drawn him here was too specific to ignore. A being of living crystal, capable of sensing stellar anomalies. The market sprawled through abandoned maintenance tunnels, a maze of makeshift stalls and suspicious glances. Liam's hand instinctively touched the data crystal hanging from his neck, his life's work, mapping the collapse of the Helios sector's dying stars. If the rumors were true, he might finally have found a way to prevent their extinction. "You look lost, Stargazer," a raspy voice called out. A vendor with cybernetic eyes studied him from behind a counter of salvaged ship parts. "The auction blocks that way. Word is they've got something special tonight." Liam nodded, his boots silent on the metal grating as he followed the pointing finger. The crowd grew thicker, voices hushed with anticipation. Through gaps between shoulders, he caught glimpses of the auction platform, and his breath caught. She stood in a containment field, her skin like polished opal catching the harsh lights. The celestial woman was tall, with features that seemed carved from living crystal hair flowing like strands of starlight. But it was her eyes that held him, deep violet, filled with both fury and ancient wisdom. "Specimen 247, the auctioneer announced, his voice dripping with false grandeur. "A genuine celestial, perfect for research or display. Bidding starts at 50,000 credits." Silence fell. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Everyone knew the stories. Celestials were supposed to be extinct, wiped out when their homeworld collapsed into a black hole centuries ago. A few merchants whispered about bad luck, about how celestials were walking bad omens. Liam saw something different. In the strange patterns rippling across her crystalline skin, he recognized astronomical coordinates, the same ones he'd been tracking in his research. This was no coincidence. 50,000, he called out, his voice steady despite his racing heart. The auctioneer's eyebrows shot up. "We have a brave bidder, do I hear 60? Silence again. The celestial woman's eyes locked onto Liam, her expression unreadable. "Sold to the gentleman in the hood. Payment and processing through Terminal 3. Minutes later, Liam stood before a processing desk, trying to keep his hands from shaking as he transferred the credits. Nearly everything he had. The clerk, a bored-looking woman with geometric tattoos, pushed a control tablet toward him. "Standard restraints and control protocols," she drawled. "Voice commands, shock capabilities, the works. Want the manual." Liam took the tablet and immediately began typing. The clerk's eyes widened as she watched him systematically disable every restriction protocol. "Sir, that's not advisable." "I know what I'm doing," he cut her off, finishing the sequence. The containment field shimmered and vanished. The celestial woman stepped forward, her movements graceful despite the gravity restraints still around her wrists. Up close, her skin was even more remarkable. Constellations seemed to shift beneath its surface. "My name is Liam Blackwood," he said quietly, "and I'm getting you out of here." Her response was swift and unexpected. "You're the one tracking the stellar deaths." Her voice held harmonics that made the air vibrate. "I've seen your work pattern in the void." Liam blinked, surprised. "How did you?" "Later," she interrupted, her eyes darting to the shadows where guards were beginning to take notice. "I am Naira, and if we don't leave now, neither of us will survive the night." She was right. Already, he could see several figures speaking into communicators, no doubt reporting the sale of such a valuable specimen to their superiors. The Stellar Consortium would have agents here within minutes. "This way," Liam said, leading her toward the maintenance corridors he'd mapped out earlier. "My ship's in Bay 17. They moved quickly through the darkened tunnels, the sound of pursuit growing behind them. Naira's crystalline form cast prismatic reflections on the walls as they ran, like scattered starlight leading their way. "Why did you free me?" she asked as they rounded another corner. "Because the stars are dying," Liam replied, "and I think you might be the key to saving them, but more than that, because it was right." A ghost of a smile crossed her crystalline features. The stars aren't dying, Liam Blackwood. They're trying to tell us something. And yes, I can help you understand their message if we survive the next 5 minutes. The sound of boots on metal grew louder. Liam pulled out his access card as they approached the ship bay doors. His vessel, the Stellar Drift, waited beyond, small, fast, and most importantly, untraceable. "Ready to see the stars from the other side?" he asked, swiping the card. Naira's answer was lost in the screech of alarm sirens. But as they raced toward the ship, Liam caught a glimpse of her expression, hope mixed with something fiercer, something that suggested their escape was just the beginning of a much larger story. The ship's engines roared to life as security forces burst into the bay. But by then, they were already lifting off, breaking free of Nova Haven's artificial gravity. As they accelerated toward the star-filled void, Liam noticed something extraordinary. The patterns on Naira's skin were shifting, aligning themselves with the stellar map on his navigation screen. "Their coordinates," she said softly, answering his unspoken question. "To where we need to go next, to where the star's message will become clear." Liam studied her for a moment, then made his decision. He'd already crossed one line tonight. What was one more? "Plot the course," he said, and watched as she reached out to touch the navigation panel, her crystalline fingers leaving trails of light across the controls. Behind them, Nova Haven became a shrinking point of light, indistinguishable from the stars around it. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and maybe, just maybe, the key to saving the galaxy's dying heart. What neither of them knew then was that their escape had been noticed by more than just the station's security. In the shadows of Nova Haven's deepest levels, a figure watched their departure through augmented eyes, sending a single encrypted message to the stellar consortium. "The Starweaver has awakened. The pattern begins again." 3 days into their journey through the uncharted regions of the Helios sector, Liam found Naira in the ship's observation dome, her crystalline form refracting starlight across the curved walls. The coordinates etched into her skin pulsed with a subtle rhythm that matched the distant stellar bodies. "The Crimson Syndicate has posted a bounty," he said, settling into the navigator's chair beside her. 10 million credits for your return, 15 if they get both of us." Naira's violet eyes remained fixed on the star field. "They don't want me, Liam. They want what I represent." She raised her hand, and suddenly the stars outside seemed to shimmer in response. "Watch." The entire observation dome filled with dancing particles of light, forming complex patterns that Liam recognized from his research. "These are the decay signatures I've been tracking. But how?" "We Celestials were never just observers of stars," Naira explained, her voice carrying that strange harmonic quality. "We were their caretakers, their healers." The light patterns shifted, showing a star system in the process of collapse. "What you call stellar death we see as an imbalance, one that can be corrected." A proximity alert cut through their conversation. Liam's hands flew to the controls. 2 ships just dropped out of hyperspace, Crimson Syndicate markings. "They're earlier than expected," Naira said, surprisingly calm. "We need to reach the Veiled Nebula before they catch us. The answers we seek are hidden there." Liam programmed a series of evasive maneuvers. The Veiled Nebula is restricted space. The consortium turned it into a military zone after the quantum storm started. "Because they found something there," Naira's skin flickered with increased intensity. "Something they didn't understand." The first shots from their pursuers streaked past the ship. Liam activated the shields, his mind racing through escape possibilities. "We'll need help to get through the blockade." "Take us to the sanctuary station," Naira said. "I know someone there, someone like me." The stellar drift shuddered as another blast grazed their shields. Liam punched in the coordinates for Sanctuary Station, a notorious haven for refugees and rebels against the consortium's rule. As they accelerated into hyperspace, he caught Naira studying him with an unreadable expression. "You're wondering if you made a mistake," she said softly. "Freeing me, starting this journey." "No," Liam replied, surprising himself with his certainty. "I'm wondering what else they lied to us about. If the Celestials could heal stars, why did the consortium erase that history?" Power, came a new voice from the ship's communication system. The same reason they're hunting you now. Liam's hand went to his sidearm, but Naira raised a calming hand. Hello, Thuron. I wondered when you'd make contact. A hologram materialized in the center of the observation dome. Another celestial, but unlike Naira, his crystalline form was scarred, with deep fissures running through his surface. The Syndicate's ships are just the beginning. The Consortium has activated the Stellar Hunters. Liam felt his blood run cold. The Stellar Hunters were the stuff of spacer nightmares, cybernetically enhanced trackers who never failed to find their prey. How long do we have? 2 days, maybe 3, Thuron's hologram flickered. I've arranged sanctuary on my station, but you'll need to get past the blockade. The old smuggler's route through the asteroid field is still active. Naira's expression tightened. The quantum storms have gotten worse, haven't they? They're not natural, Thuron confirmed. The Consortium's experiments with stellar energy, they're destabilizing the entire sector. That's why the stars are dying. He looked directly at Liam. Your research came dangerously close to exposing their secret. That's why they've been watching you. The revelation hit Liam like a physical blow. All those years mapping stellar decay patterns, he'd been documenting evidence of deliberate destruction. They're harvesting the star's energy, he whispered. But for what? That's what we need to find out. Naira placed her hand over his on the control panel. Where their skin touched, warmth spread through his arm, along with a sensation of vast distances and ancient knowledge. But first, we need to survive the next 48 hours. Thuron's hologram began to fade. Get to Sanctuary, and Naira, be careful with the resonance. They can track it now. As the hologram disappeared, Liam turned to Naira. Resonance. She held up her hand, letting starlight play across her crystalline skin. How do you think we healed the stars? Every celestial can tap into stellar energy, create resonance patterns that stabilize dying cores. But the Consortium, they found a way to corrupt that connection, to drain stars instead of healing them. The ship's sensors chimed, indicating they were approaching the asteroid field. Liam began preparing for the dangerous navigation ahead, but his mind was racing with implications. That's why they hunted your people to extinction. Not because you were a threat, but because you could expose what they were doing. Not extinction, Naira corrected, her voice carrying a note of fierce pride. There are more of us than they know, hidden, scattered, but waiting. The stars themselves protect us, shield us from their sensors. She paused, watching as the first asteroids came into view. That's why I let myself be captured, let myself be sold. We needed to find someone who could see the pattern, someone who could help us stop them. You chose me, Liam realized, before I ever stepped into that auction. The stars chose you, she replied. I just followed their guidance. The first asteroid tumbled past their viewport, followed by another and another. Ahead lay a maze of rock and ice, their only path to safety. But as Liam guided the ship into the field, he felt something he hadn't experienced since his early days of stellar cartography: purpose. Whatever the Consortium was planning, whatever force they were building by draining the stars, he and Naira would find a way to stop them. The patterns in her skin pulsed in time with his thoughts, as if the very stars were acknowledging their resolve. Behind them, the quantum storms raged, and somewhere in the darkness, the stellar hunters began their pursuit. But for now, there was only the dance of asteroids, the glow of distant stars, and the growing connection between a human who had spent his life studying the stars and a celestial who had been born to heal them. The true test of that connection lay ahead, in the shadows of the veiled nebula, where ancient secrets and modern crimes were about to collide. Sanctuary Station hung in space like a tarnished jewel, its ancient solar sails stretched wide to catch the light of distant stars. As the stellar drift approached through the last wisps of the asteroid field, Liam noticed how the patterns on Naira's skin grew more intense, resonating with something hidden within the station's weathered hull. There are others here, she whispered, pressing her hand against the viewport. Not just Thuron, I can feel their songs in the void. Before Liam could respond, a warning klaxon blared. 3 ships emerged from behind the station's shadow, sleek, predatory vessels marked with the crimson insignia of the stellar hunters. They found us. Liam's hands flew across the controls, but it was too late. A traction beam seized their ship, pulling them inexorably toward the largest vessel. Naira's expression remained eerily calm. "No, Liam, watch." The hunter ships suddenly shimmered, their threatening forms dissolving like mirages. In their place appeared a trio of battered trading vessels, their hulls adorned with crystalline growths that pulsed with familiar patterns. Celestial ships, Liam breathed, disguised with stellar resonance. The traction beam gentled, guiding them toward a hidden docking port beneath Sanctuary Station's main structure. As they landed, Thuron's voice crackled through the calm. "Welcome to the last free port in the Helios sector. Hurry, we don't have much time." The docking bay that greeted them was unlike anything Liam had ever seen. Crystalline formations grew from the walls like frozen starlight, each one humming with subtle energy. And there, waiting for them, stood not just Thuron but a small group of Celestials, their damaged and scarred forms telling stories of survival and resistance. "The stellar cartographer who sees truth in the void," Thuron clasped Liam's arm in greeting. Up close, the fissures in his crystalline form seemed to hold traces of starfare. "And Naira, the starweaver who dared to be caught." His expression grew serious. "They're moving faster than we anticipated. The consortium has already begun the final phase." "Show them," said a female celestial whose form was latticed with golden light. She introduced herself as Raven, lead navigator of the hidden fleet. Thuron led them through crystalline corridors to a vast chamber that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. At its center floated a holographic representation of the Veiled Nebula, but not as Liam had ever seen it on any star chart. This version showed currents of energy being systematically drained from stars, all flowing toward a single point deep within the restricted zone. "The stellar engine," Thuron explained. "The consortium's greatest crime and darkest secret. They're not just draining stars, they're building a weapon capable of controlling stellar evolution itself." Liam studied the energy patterns, his years of research finally clicking into place. That's why the decay patterns were so uniform. They're not random deaths, they're systematic harvesting. "For 30 years, they've been gathering power," Raven added, her golden lattice dimming with emotion. "Energy enough to reshape or destroy entire star systems, and now they're nearly ready to use it." Naira stepped into the hologram, her own crystalline form resonating with the displayed energy flows. "But they don't understand what they're doing. Stellar energy can't be controlled, not the way they think. It's alive, conscious in ways their instruments can't detect." "That's where you come in," Thuron turned to Liam. "Your mapping algorithm, it doesn't just track stellar decay, it reveals the underlying patterns of stellar consciousness, patterns that only the Celestials were supposed to be able to see." "Because he's a starborn," Naira said softly. "A human carrying traces of celestial genetics, though he doesn't know it. That's why the stars chose him, why I chose him." The revelation struck Liam silent. He remembered his mother's stories about her mysterious ancestry, the way she could sometimes predict solar storms before any instruments detected them. "How many of us are there?" "More than the consortium knows," Raven smiled. "Scattered through the human populations, carrying fragments of our ability to communicate with the stars. That's why they've been so careful to control information about celestial history." Their discussion was interrupted by a sudden tremor that ran through the station. The crystalline growths on the walls flared with warning light. "Hunter ships," Thuron moved quickly to a control panel. "Real ones this time, they've found us." "We need to reach the stellar engine." Naira's voice carried the harmonic resonance of multiple stars. "The consortium doesn't realize what they've built if they activate it. They'll tear open the barrier between normal space and the stellar realm," Raven finished, "releasing energies they can't possibly control." Liam's mind raced through possibilities. "The restricted zone is heavily guarded, but I've mapped electromagnetic dead zones in the nebula's structure, places where their sensors can't penetrate." "It's not enough," Thuron shook his head. "We need a diversion, something big enough to draw their fleet away from the engine." "The stars will help us." Naira's skin rippled with increasing brightness. If we can reach the engine, I can use its own collected energy to awaken the stellar consciousness they've trapped. But, she turned to Liam, her violet eyes intense. It will be dangerous, the resonance required. It might burn out any celestial who attempts it. Unless, Raven interjected, the resonance is shared between celestial and starborn, a bridge between both worlds. Another impact rocked the station. Through the viewport, Liam could see more hunter ships emerging from hyperspace. Time was running out. "How many ships can your people crew?" he asked Thuron. "7, not enough for a proper fleet action." "We don't need a fleet." Liam pulled up his stellar maps, overlaying them with the hologram of the nebula. "We need a symphony." He looked at Naira, seeing understanding dawn in her expression. "The decay patterns," she whispered, "if we reverse them." "We create a resonance cascade," Liam finished. "Every star they've drained, singing at once, enough chaos to blind their sensors and overwhelm their control systems." Thuron's crystalline form pulsed with sudden hope. "A stellar rebellion." Raven was already moving toward the door. "I'll prepare the ships, but you'll only have hours before the consortium realizes what's happening." "Hours is all we need." Naira took Liam's hand, and he felt the power of distant stars flowing between them. "The time of hiding is over. Let them see what happens when the stars fight back." As alarms blared throughout Sanctuary Station and the hunter ships closed in, Liam looked at the assembled Celestials, damaged, determined, and no longer alone. Whatever came next would change the galaxy forever. In the hologram, the veiled nebula waited, its secrets about to be unveiled. And somewhere in its depths, a machine built to enslave the stars was about to become a tool of liberation. The real question was, would they survive to see it? The veiled nebula lived up to its name, its swirling purple clouds concealing 7 crystalline ships as they approached the consortium's restricted zone. On the bridge of the lead vessel, Liam watched Naira coordinate with the other Celestials through pulses of stellar energy that made their ships virtually invisible to conventional sensors. "The engine's quantum signature is growing stronger," Raven reported from her navigation station, her golden lattice structure shimming with reflected nebula light. "They're beginning the final power-up sequence." Thuron's voice crackled through the comm system. "Multiple capital ships detected around the primary facility. They're expecting trouble." But not from the stars themselves. Naira's skin pulsed with building energy as she interfaced with the ship's crystalline matrix. "Liam, it's time." He took his place beside her at the resonance core, placing his hands on the control crystals. The moment they connected, stellar consciousness flooded his awareness, countless points of light singing in harmony, waiting to be awakened. "Remember," Thuron warned, "once we begin, we'll have minutes at most before they realize what's happening. The hunter ships will respond immediately." "Then let's give them something to chase." Raven's ship broke formation, leading 2 others toward the nearest patrol route. "We'll keep them busy, just get to that engine." Liam closed his eyes, letting his newly awakened starborn senses merge with Naira's celestial abilities. Together, they reached out to the dozens of dying stars surrounding the nebula, their combined resonance carrying a simple message: wake up. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Throughout the sector, drained stars suddenly flared with renewed energy. Consortium sensor arrays overloaded as stellar frequencies they'd tried to suppress burst free. Alarms blared across their capital ships as power systems fluctuated wildly. "Multiple vessels responding to Raven's position," Thuron reported. "Weapon systems charging. Wait, something's wrong." Through their shared consciousness, Liam and Naira felt it too, a discordant note in the stellar symphony emanating from the engine itself. The consortium wasn't just gathering stellar energy. They were twisting it, forcing it into patterns that violated the fundamental harmonies of space-time. "They're trying to accelerate the engine's activation." Naira's voice carried harmonics of multiple stars. "If they succeed, the barrier between normal space and the stellar realm will shatter," Liam finished, understanding through their connection just how catastrophic that would be. "We need to get closer." Their small fleet split up. using the chaos of rebelling stars to slip through gaps in the consortium's defensive screen. But as they approached the massive engine facility, a new threat emerged. Stellar hunters, Thuron's warning came too late. 3 sleek black ships appeared from the nebula's clouds, their hulls covered in technology designed specifically to track and neutralize celestial energy signatures. "They're not trying to capture us this time," Naira's skin flickered with concern. "These ones are here to kill." The hunter ships opened fire, their weapons charged with corrupted stellar energy that could pierce crystalline hulls. One of the celestial vessels erupted in a spray of luminous shards before managing to escape into the nebula's depths. "We can't take another hit like that," Thuron's voice was tight with strain. "The resonance patterns are destabilizing." But Liam had noticed something through their shared stellar awareness, a pattern within the hunter ship's energy weapons. "They're using the same frequencies as the engine. If we can match that resonance, we can turn their own power against them," Naira understood immediately. Her crystalline form began to pulse with a new rhythm, and Liam felt the stars responding, their energy flowing through both of them in perfect synchronization. The next shots from the hunter ships met a barrier of pure stellar energy, their corrupted power redirected back into their own systems. 2 of the vessels exploded immediately. The third managed to retreat, but the way to the engine was clear. They had won a momentary advantage, but the victory came with a cost. Liam could feel the strain on Naira's crystalline structure, see the spreading network of tiny fissures across her surface. "The resonance is too strong," she gasped. "I can't maintain it much longer." "You don't have to." Liam pressed his hand to hers, sharing his own strength through their connection. "We do this together." Around them, the battle continued to rage. Raven's ships led the consortium fleet on a desperate chase through the nebula, while Thuron's vessel provided cover for their final approach to the engine. But time was running out. The massive facility's power signature was reaching critical levels. As they prepared for their final push toward the engine's core, Liam and Naira shared a moment of perfect understanding through their stellar bond. Whatever happened next would determine not just their fate, but the future of human-celestial relations and the very stars themselves. The engine loomed before them, a monument to humanity's hubris and the consortium's cruel ambitions. But it was about to become something else entirely, a catalyst for change, a fusion of human insight and celestial wisdom. If they survived long enough to use it. The stellar engine's central chamber was a cathedral of light and shadow, where countless stolen stellar energies converged into a single pulsing core. As Liam and Naira fought their way through the facility's final defenses, her crystalline form leaving trails of starlight in the artificial gravity, they could feel the boundary between normal space and the stellar realm growing dangerously thin. "The containment fields are failing," Thuron's voice crackled through their comm system. "Whatever you're going to do, it needs to happen now." Outside, the battle had reached its crescendo. Raven's ships danced through clouds of stellar fire, drawing consortium forces away from the engine, while the awakened stars themselves seemed to pulse in rhythm with the Celestials' resistance. "They built better than they knew," Naira's voice carried the harmonics of 1,000 stars as she interfaced with the engine's control systems. "This machine, it's not just a weapon, it's a bridge." Liam understood through their shared consciousness. The consortium had created something that transcended their own brutal ambitions, a device capable of joining human and celestial understanding of the cosmos. But first, they had to prevent it from tearing reality apart. "Multiple hunter ships on approach," Raven warned. "They've realized what we're trying to do." Naira's crystalline form pulsed with increasing brightness as she drew power from the engine's core. "The resonance is building. Liam, I need you." He took his place beside her at the main control interface, their hands joining as stellar energy flowed between them. Through their combined starborn and celestial senses, they could feel the very fabric of space responding to their presence. "Remember what you saw in the stellar maps," Naira's voice was strained with effort. "The patterns weren't just decay, they were a language. The stars have been trying to talk to us all along." Liam closed his eyes, letting his consciousness expand through their connection. The stellar frequencies that he'd spent years mapping suddenly resolved into clear messages, ancient songs of creation and renewal that the consortium had tried to silence. A violent tremor shook the facility. Multiple breaches detected, Thuron reported. Consortium forces are inside the facility and something else, something bigger. Through the engine's viewing ports, they saw it. A massive capital ship emerging from hyperspace, its hull bristling with weapons designed to corrupt and contain stellar energy. On its bridge stood Admiral Voss, the architect of the consortium's anti-celestial campaign. This was never about power, the Admiral's voice boomed through the facility's comm system. It was about evolution, humanity taking control of its own cosmic destiny. Even now, you can't see that we're trying to save you all. By enslaving the stars themselves, Naira's challenge rang with the authority of ancient stellar wisdom. You don't even understand what they are. Then show us, Voss replied, and to everyone's surprise, his voice held genuine curiosity beneath the threat. Prove that there's another way. Liam felt Naira's resolve through their connection. This was the moment everything had led to, not a final battle, but a chance for genuine understanding between species. Together, they began to sing. There was no other word for it. Their combined resonance reached out through the engine's systems, transforming its purpose. Where it had once drained stellar energy, it now conducted it like a cosmic symphony. The barrier between realms grew permeable but stable, allowing the stars' true nature to shine through. The chamber filled with light as stellar consciousness touched human awareness. Every person in the facility, from consortium troops to resistance fighters, felt the connection that Liam and Naira shared, the profound unity between all sapient life and the cosmic forces that birthed them. Through their joined senses, they offered understanding. The stars were not just nuclear furnaces to be harnessed, but conscious entities that had shepherded life since the beginning. The Celestials were not meant to be their masters, but their interpreters and caretakers. And humans, with their unique capacity for innovation, could bridge ancient wisdom and new discovery. The effect rippled outward. Throughout the sector, dying stars renewed themselves, their energy flowing naturally rather than being forcibly drained. The hunter ships stood down as their crews experienced direct communication with the stellar beings they'd been taught to fear. Admiral Voss's capital ship powered down its weapons. I understand now, his voice had lost its harsh edge. All this time. It was never about control, Naira finished. It was about harmony. The resonance reached its peak, and for a moment, every being in the nebula shared a vision of possibility. A future where human ingenuity and celestial wisdom worked together to heal rather than harm, to explore rather than exploit. Liam felt Naira's crystalline form beginning to stabilize, the fissures in her surface filling with new light. Through their bond, he sensed her joy at what they'd accomplished, and something more personal beneath it. The stars chose well, she said softly, turning to him as the engine's chamber began to fill with both consortium personnel and resistance fighters, all changed by what they'd witnessed. When they led me to you. They chose all of us, Liam replied, understanding at last, to learn from each other, to be better than our fears. Raven's voice came through the comm, thick with emotion. The consortium fleet is standing down. They're requesting dialogue. Then let's give them something worth talking about, Thuron added, as his ship docked with the facility. The veiled nebula was veiled no longer, its clouds shimmering with renewed stellar light. Throughout the sector, Celestials emerged from hiding while humans with starborn genetics discovered their true heritage. The engine, transformed by understanding, became a symbol not of dominion, but of connection. And at its heart stood Liam and Naira, their hands still joined, their shared resonance a promise of things to come. They had done more than save the stars. They had shown two species a new way to see the universe and each other. The real work was just beginning, but now at least they would face it together, their path lit by the very stars they had helped to free. In the vast depths of space, countless points of light pulsed with renewed energy, their ancient songs echoing through both realms. a cosmic symphony of hope, healing, and harmony that would ripple through the galaxy for generations to come.